Hi guys, it's Angie with Fun Endeavors Tie-Dye Lab. Today I'm going to do a gravity twist. I've made a shirt like this before, but I used a much larger shirt and I used more than one color. So I'm going to try this technique again and see how it works with a few variables changed. For this shirt, I'm going to use Northern Lights from Dalula Co. Before I brought the shirt outside, I drew a diagonal line from one shoulder of the shirt to the opposite corner of the shirt. And for my setup, I have my plastic sawhorses with a couple long pieces of vinyl guttering in between them. Then I've placed a metal rack that has legs on it to keep the rack from sliding off of the guttering across the two pieces of guttering. I'm going to place the shirt on the metal rack and grab that line, kind of do a twist, and then poke it through one of the holes in the metal rack. By the way, with the setup that I'm using right here, you can do more than one shirt at a time. I actually have another gravity die going further down the piece of vinyl guttering. So because this shirt isn't quite as large as the last one that I did this technique on, not as much of the shirt is able to hang down. So as you're going to see a little bit further down the video, that's going to affect the dye flow a little bit. I'm going to sprinkle the Northern Lights over the areas that I poked down through the metal rack. Then I'm going to add an additional sprinkle of dry soda ash over the top and add on some larger ice chunks. I like to use the larger ice chunks because it's really hot where I live, and the ice will melt a little bit slower, or at least I won't have to replace it quite as often if I use the larger chunks of ice. I make these in pretty much any container I can find. Cool Whip containers, food prep containers, just pretty much anything that's plastic that I can fill up with water and freeze. I've included some process photos so you can see how the ice melted and the dye moved. I came back and added a second layer of ice, and you can see how the shirt looked after that second layer melted. After the second layer melted, I realized that the dye was probably not going to move a whole lot more down the shirt. So I went ahead and added some smaller chunks of ice and added a little bit of dye over the top of the shirt. Then I added another additional sprinkle of dry soda ash and allowed this ice to melt. Part of the reason why the dye wasn't moving quite as well is because the shirt is pretty much flat, for one thing. But the second thing is I added the dye over the top of where I poked the shirt through the holes. So a lot of the dye went down inside of those holes. So obviously there's not a lot of dye on top to actually travel through the shirt. So after all of this ice melted, I came back and the dye had actually started to travel down the shirt a whole lot better than it had before. So I added another layer of ice, and this time I added some pretty large chunks of ice and allowed that ice to melt as well. I've included a few more process photos. It was starting to get a little bit late in the day, and I wanted to speed the process along a little bit. I took the shirt out of the holes where I'd poked the shirt through the holes, kind of scrunched it up and laid it across the rack. Put a little bit more dye right on that line and added a little more soda ash and some more ice. When this batch of ice melted, by that time the dye had gone all the way out to the edges of the fabric. So I took this rack and placed it down inside of a tall-sided plastic tub, put the lid on the tub, and put the tub outside. It's been about 100 degrees here, so that's a great temperature to go ahead and process tie-dye. Being in the plastic tub, the shirt's not going to dry out, and the heat's going to make nice, vibrant colors. I left the shirt in the plastic tote or tub for about 24 hours before I began rinsing it. By the time I went to rinse the shirt, the dye had gone all the way down the sides of the shirt. There was just a little bit of lighter area on the shirt. I rinsed the shirt like normal. I started rinsing it in cold water to rinse out the soda ash. Then I warmed the water up to hot, and I continued rinsing in hot water to rinse out the excess dye that didn't bond with the fabric. Like normal, I went ahead and soaked the shirt. I added some really hot water to my utility sink, added a little bit of Blue Dawn dish soap to the water, placed the shirt inside, and allowed it to soak. When the water cooled off, I changed it out, and I continued that soaking process until my water was remaining almost clear. Then I put the shirt along with some Dharma's professional textile detergent into my washing machine, and I washed it using a hot water cycle. Okay, so I've washed, dried, and ironed the shirt, and let's see how it looks. Okay, so what do you guys think? I think this one turned out really pretty in spite of the difficulty I had with it. I love this color. Northern Lights is such a pretty color from Dalula Company. It has gorgeous color splits. You know, I have pinks and purples, teals, blues, grays, just so many different colors showing up in this shirt. And it's kind of funny the way the colors split on this shirt. You know, I have the teals and those darker colors kind of going off to one side of the shirt, and I have the lighter colors going off to the other side of the shirt. So I think that's kind of funny. I like it though. I think it makes it very interesting. It looks like I used more than one color for this shirt, but I didn't. And I do have some sprinkles on the shirt. I mean, with as much dye as I added, as windy as it was, it's amazing I don't have more. But I do right up on the back of the shirt on both of the sleeves. But I don't think it looks bad. You know, it took me quite a while to actually get the dye to move down the shirt with this gravity dye. And that can happen sometimes. But don't get discouraged if you're working with a shirt and you're having a problem getting the dye to move down to the edges of the shirt. Do like I did, just try to improvise. The one thing that I do sometimes with shirts like this is I will spray the shirt with the soda ash solution, and I'll pretty heartily spray it. I mean, I'll spray it till it's kind of dripping. That helps to encourage that dye to move down into that wet part of the shirt. And it also helps to keep the shirt damp so that it doesn't dry out during this process. The other thing is once I saw that maybe too much of that dye was falling through those holes or those areas, you know, of the rack, I just took the shirt off of the rack. This shirt still has texture where it initially was poked through the holes of that rack, which I think looks really cool. So poking the shirt through gave some dimension and looked like texture to the shirt, but that had already happened by the time I pulled it out of that rack and just added a little bit more dye to encourage that dye to flow out to the edges of that shirt. Like I said, just work with it, improvise, do what you have to do to get your dye to flow to the edges of the shirt. Then, because I added so much ice and it was starting to get late in the day and I didn't have enough time to allow the shirt to process outside where I could watch it so it wouldn't dry out, I've started just putting these shirts inside of plastic totes, placing the lids on the totes and putting them back outside in the heat. That way I don't have to babysit them. I know they're not going to dry out, and I'm still going to get the nice, brilliant, vibrant colors. So even though this shirt was a little touch and go at first, I still really like the way it turned out. But what do you guys think? Please drop me some comments down below and let me know. And if you like this dye color, I'll leave a link down below to Dalula Company's website. This color was developed specifically for ice dyeing, and so it has these gorgeous color splits. Also, if you've enjoyed watching the video, I sure would appreciate it if you would like it and if you'd subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you'll hit the bell, you'll receive a notification whenever I upload a new video. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great day.